prove that they would willingly engage in fight with strangers who had made themselves so detestable, were it not that the startling explosion of gunpowder inspires them with terror. Into what country soever the Arabs enter, they contrive to render their name and race abominated. But the mainspring of it all is not the Arab's nature, color, or name, but simply the slave trade. So long as the slave trade is permitted to be kept up at Zanzibar, so long will these otherwise enterprising people, the Arabs, kindle against them the hatred of the natives throughout Africa. On the main line of travel from Zanzibar into the interior of Africa, these acts of cruelty are unknown, for the very good reason that the natives, having been armed with guns and taught how to use these weapons, are by no means loath to do so whenever an opportunity presents itself. When, too late, they have perceived their folly in selling guns to the natives, the Arabs now begin to vow vengeance on the person who will in future sell a gun to a native. But they are all guilty of the same mistake, and it is strange they did not perceive that it was folly when they were doing so. In former days the Arab, when protected by his slave escort armed with guns, could travel through Useguhha, Urori, Ukonongo, Ufipa, Karagwa, Unyore, and Uganda, with only a stick in his hand. Now, however, it is impossible for him or anyone else to do so. Every step he takes, armed or unarmed, is fraught with danger. The Waseguhha, near the coast, detain him and demand the tribute, or give him the option of war. Entering Ugogo, he is subjected every day to the same oppressive demand, or to the fearful alternative. The Wanyamwezi also show their readiness to take the same advantage. The road to Karagwa is besieged with difficulties. The terrible Marumba stands in the way, defeats their combined forces with ease, and makes raids even to the doors of their houses in Unyanyembe. And should they succeed in passing Mirambo, a chief Swaruru stands before them, who demands tribute by the bale, and against whom it is useless to contend. These remarks have reference to the slave trade inaugurated in Manyuema by the Arabs. Harassed on the road between Zanzibar and Unyanyembe by minatory natives, who with bloody hands are ready to avenge the slightest affront, the Arabs have refrained from kidnapping between the Tanganyika and the sea. But in Manyuema, where the natives are timid, irresolute, and divided into small weak tribes, they recover their audacity, and exercise their kidnapping propensities unchecked. The accounts which the Doctor brings from the new region are most deplorable. He was an unwilling spectator of a horrible deed, a massacre committed on the inhabitants of a populous district, which had assembled in the market place on the banks of the Lualaba, as they had been accustomed to do for ages. It seems that the Wanyuema are very fond of marketing, believing it to be the summum bonum of human enjoyment. They find endless pleasure in chaffering with might and main for the least mite of their currency, the last bead, and when they gain the point to which their peculiar talents are devoted, they feel intensely happy. The women are excessively fond of this marketing, and as they are very beautiful, the market place must possess considerable attractions for the male sex. It was on such a day, amidst such a scene, that Tagamoyo, a half caste Arab, with his armed slave escort, commenced an indiscriminate massacre by firing volley after volley into the dense mass of human beings. It is supposed that there are about 2,000 present, and at the first sound of the firing these poor people all made a rush for their canoes. In the fearful hurry to avoid being shot, the canoes were paddled away by the first fortunate few who got possession of them. Those that were not so fortunate sprang into the deep waters of the Lualaba, and though many of them became an easy prey to the voracious crocodiles which swarmed to the scene, the majority received their deaths from the bullets of the merciless Tagamoyo and his villainous band. The Doctor believes, as do the Arabs themselves, that about 400 people, mostly women and children, lost their lives, while many more were made slaves. This outrage is only one of many such he has unwillingly witnessed, and he is utterly unable to describe the feelings of loathing he feels for the inhuman perpetrators. Slaves from Manyuema command a higher price than those of any other country, because of their fine forms and general docility. The women, the Doctor said repeatedly, are remarkably pretty creatures, and have nothing, except the hair, in common with the negroes of the west coast. They are of a very light colour, have fine noses, well cut and not over full lips, while the prognathous jaw is uncommon. These women are eagerly sought after as wives by the half caste of the east coast, and even the pure Omani Arabs do not disdain to take them in marriage. To the north of Manyuema, Livingstone came to the light complexioned race, of the colour of Portuguese, or our own Louisiana quadroons, who are very fine people, and singularly remarkable for commercial cuteness and sagacity. The women are expert divers for oysters, which are found in great abundance in the Lualaba. Rua, at the place called Katanga, is rich in copper. The copper mines of this place have been worked for ages. In the bed of the stream, gold has been found, washed down in pencil shaped pieces, or in particles as large as split peas. 2 Arabs have gone thither to prospect for this metal, but, as they are ignorant of the art of gulch mining, it is scarcely possible that they will succeed. From these highly important and interesting discoveries, Dr. Livingstone was turned back, when almost on the threshold of success, by the positive refusal of his men to accompany him further. They were afraid to go on unless accompanied by a large force of men, and as these were not procurable in Manyuema, the Doctor reluctantly turned his face toward Ujiji. It was a long and weary road back. The journey had now no interest for him. He had travelled the road before when going westward, full of high hopes and aspirations, impatient to reach the goal which promised him rest from his labours. Now, returning unsuccessful, baffled, and thwarted, when almost in sight of the end, and having to travel the same path back on foot, with disappointed expectations and defeated hopes preying on his mind, no wonder that the old brave spirit almost succumbed, and the strong constitution almost went to wreck. Livingstone arrived at Ujiji, October 16th, almost at death's door. On the way he had been trying to cheer himself up, since he had found it impossible to contend against the obstinacy of his men, with "It won't take long, 5 or 6 months more, it matters not, since it cannot be helped. I have my goods at Ujiji, and can hire other people and make a new start again." These are the words and hopes by which he tried to delude himself into the idea that all would be right yet. But imagine the shock he must have suffered when he found that the man whom he entrusted his goods for safe keeping had sold every bell for ivory. The evening of the day Livingstone had returned to Ujiji, Susi and Chuma, 2 of his most faithful men, were seen crying bitterly. The Doctor asked of them what ailed them, and was then informed, for the first time, of the evil tidings that awaited him. Said they, "All our things are sold, sir. Sherif has sold everything for ivory." Later in the evening Sherif came to see him, and shamelessly offered his hand. But Livingstone repulsed him, saying he could not shake hands with a thief. As an excuse, Sherif said he had divined on the Koran, and that this had told him that the Hakim (Arabic for doctor) was dead. Livingstone was now destitute. He had